Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell makes a major announcement on behalf of tens of millions of Americans here today. And experts warn that stagflation is coming, which plagued Americans and America in the 1970s, which led to the highest interest rates ever in America. Remember those interest rates of the 1970s? Well, if you didn't, they were the worst ever, and this could be coming for the United States. All this in this video. Let's jump right in. Thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos. Here we go. Okay, so Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell made a major announcement here just today, and here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. The economy has made considerable progress toward our dual mandate objectives. Inflation has eased substantially over the past year, while the labor market has remained strong. And that's very good news. But inflation is still too high. Further progress in bringing it down is not assured, and the path forward is uncertain. We are fully committed to returning inflation to our 2% goal. Restoring price stability is essential to achieve a sustainably strong labor market that benefits all. Today, the FOMC decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings, though at a slower pace. Our restrictive stance of monetary policy has been putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation, and the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals have moved toward better balance over the past year. However, in recent months, inflation has shown a lack of further progress toward our 2% objective, and we remain highly attentive to inflation risks. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. Although GDP growth moderated from 3.4% in the fourth quarter of last year to 1.6% in the first quarter, private domestic final purchases, which excludes inventory investment, government spending, and net exports, and usually sends a clearer signal on underlying demand, was 3.1% in the first quarter, as strong as the second half of 2023. Consumer spending has been robust over the past several quarters, even as high interest rates have weighed on housing and equipment investment. Improving supply conditions have supported resilient demand and the strong performance of the U.S. economy over the past year. The labor market remains relatively tight, but supply and demand conditions have come into better balance. Payroll job gains averaged 276,000 jobs per month in the first quarter, while the unemployment rate remains low at 3.8%. Strong job creation over the past year has been accompanied by an increase in the supply of workers, reflecting increases in participation among individuals aged 25 to 54 years, and a continued strong pace of immigration.
So he goes on for quite a while there, but the point here is that the Fed holds interest rates for now at a 23-year high, citing a lack of further progress on inflation. 23-year high, he says we're not going to lower interest rates, even though they previously said that they were going to lower interest rates 3 times this year. And now we're starting to get people that are saying that the Fed won't be able to cut interest rates at all in 2024, says a former Obama economic advisor. And if they're not able to cut interest rates at all in 2024, and coming from Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's own words, there's no new progress on inflation. And remember that they kind of trick you with what they're saying on inflation. Inflation is this year's increase on inflation over last year's. So when they say that inflation is 4%, that means that 4% is 4% more than last year's inflation. Remember that last year's inflation was at a 40-year high over But it was, take a look here, right here. Social Security cost of living adjustment in 2023 was 8.7%, was the highest increase in 40 years. 40 years. We're still seeing very high inflation over that. Over that. This means that inflation is still going up since then. Since then. This is where people get fooled. And the year before that was 5.9%, okay, for 2022. This is where people don't quite understand the numbers. This is why I'm going to explain it. 5.9% the year before, 8.7% in 2023, and we're still seeing some record high inflation since then. As you can see, this number, Fed holds interest rates at 23-year high, citing lack of further progress on inflation. This is where it gets very, very difficult. And in fact, stagflation fears come back with vengeance. U.S. economy could be headed toward stagflation scenario, which is what we've seen in the 70s, because inflation would not go away. We continue to see inflation year after year after year. Two experts outline a looming scenario where the U.S. economy could be caught in a dreaded period of stagflation. Inflation every single year that won't go away, and the Fed has to continue to raise interest rates because inflation will not go away. Take a look here. A pair of economic reports have brought back a word no central banker wants to even hear, the word stagflation. This was actually before we just got the Fed's announcement here today. A difficult scenario occurs when inflation rises and growth stalls, a dangerous combination just experienced by the U.S. economy. Worries emerged when Thursday's first quarter GDP reading slumped against expectations, growing at an annualized 1.6% rate. That's considered a slowdown from previous quarters and falls well under estimates for the U.S. economy of 2.5%. Just a day later, personal consumption expenditures did the opposite, outpacing forecasts on Friday. Inflation metrics favored by the Federal Reserve rose 2.8% against 2.7%. If you take the inflation report in conjunction with the economic GDP report for the country, I think what investors really have to start positioning themselves for is the resurgence of the stagflation debate. If that's what actually takes hold, it would not be a welcome sign for the markets, the economy, or the average everyday American. Lessons can be drawn from the 1970s, a decade often cited as a cautionary tale. In that era, a cycle of low growth and double-digit inflation only ended after the Fed sent interest rates sky high, driving the U.S. into a major recession. When issues first emerged, volatility sent stock markets falling. And guess what? Interest rates actually hit up to near 17% back in 1981. It's actually when I was born. Let me know if you remember this, if you're older than me. And that was maybe if you had good credit. Maybe people even had interest rates maybe a little bit higher than that. But when interest rates for mortgages, which is secured collateral, get that high, people are going to be paying a lot of money. Remember that right now, from Forbes, the average overall APR on credit card interest rates is the highest ever, or, it's been, looming around there, is 27.9%, up from last week. We basically can round this to 28% interest rates on credit cards. 28%. Imagine if interest rates actually go higher on credit cards, mortgages, car loans, anything, right? You name it. And honestly, if interest rates just stay higher for longer, even if they don't go up, if they just stay higher for a longer period of time, it's going to crush the average everyday American, the economy, businesses. We just had another bank fail. I'll link you to that video here in a moment. And the economy is just going to continue to struggle the higher interest rates stay higher for longer. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to subscribe down below and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on new videos. I'll keep you up to date here with everything happening here in our country on a daily basis. Click here to see the newest bank that just failed in the US. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.